Okay, so here we are talking about the Middle East, a crucial area of the world, and I might pull a John Green and talk really fast so I can fit it all in. So here is the Middle East. These are the countries we talk about when we refer to the Middle East, but I wanted to be clear that this is a European concept, right? In the Middle Ages or the Renaissance, Europeans called it the Middle East because it was in between Europe and Asia. So obviously what these countries hold in common is the religion of Islam. We got to go back in time to the 1920s, right? In the crazy post-war world, things to remember. The Ottoman Empire has collapsed, and for much of history, the Ottoman Empire controlled a chunk of this area. So the League of Nations is given the mandate to control and decide what to do with this territory. But of course, what a lot of countries don't realize that the British and French had secretly divided this territory towards the end of the war. So when the League of Nations is mandated to control it, who but France and Great Britain get the actual mandates, right, to control that territory? So sketchy. We also see the formation of two new states, the Republic of Turkey here and Iran. And they start to think, well, how do we connect to the 20th century world? So we probably should talk more about this, but I think the SOL apparently doesn't care about these countries, but we should as educated Americans. So take a minute and kind of look through some of the facts here and the names. Mustafa Kemal, known as Ataturk, he becomes the president of the Republic of Turkey, and modern Turkey today owes what it is, right, to Kemal. Reza Shah Pahlavi establishes the Republic or the state of Iran in 1935. He restores the name Iran, and so it's no longer called Persia. So both men try to modernize their respective countries. Here is Kemal, and here is Reza Shah Pahlavi. And here's a side note about Saudi Arabia, also formed at this point. Oil as use, I'm sure, no doubt, surprised to find out, drives development, especially America. We will try to kind of interfere here, but we end up kind of forming an alliance over oil with Saudi Arabia. Okay, but let's get to the truly complicated matter, and that is Palestine and the British mandate. So, in the late 1800s, like most people, there are nationalist movements all over Europe, and so Jews also feel nationalistic. Only their homeland, the place they want to be their nation, is here in Palestine. And so by the midst or the end of World War I, Balfour, a British foreign minister, says, you know what, that's cool. The British government looks favorably upon the settlement of Jews in Palestine. Now, they also promised in the midst of World War I Arabs independent states, or the goal, self-determination. If Arabs helped the British fight the Turks, they could, decide the future of their country, which of course I'm sure you suspect the British will completely diss them for that. So when the war is over, we see waves of Jewish immigration from Europe to Palestine. So sometimes people are going for the first time, and then as we get closer into the 30s, right, the Arabs start to revolt because the balance is unequal. Like all of a sudden you have these waves of these Europeans coming in and kind of upsetting the way things are done in Palestine. So by 1939, to kind of quell the Arab revolt, the British government makes some proposals, and part of it is that they limit Jewish immigration to Palestine. I know what you're thinking. These dates sound familiar. That's right. Jews are getting out of Europe for a reason, right? And they especially are leaving Germany because of the rise of Nazi Germany. So, after World War II, things get really complicated. The Holocaust has occurred. A lot of Jews are saying, see, we told you, we are not safe here. And so a lot of nations start to think, okay, you're right, maybe the Jews need a homeland, and maybe it needs to be in Palestine. But the problem is turned over to the United Nations, who of course are going to solve all of our problems. So they tackled this issue in 1947. Their decision, because it's in vogue at the time, right, we're going to partition India, we might as well partition Palestine. So they say, okay, the Jews will get 55% of the territory, even though they are only 35% of the population. The United States and Europeans say, yes, we think this is a good idea. Islamic nations say, no. So why? The Europeans and Americans are fully aware of the Holocaust, maybe feel a titch guilty over this, and not stopping it. Islamic nations are like, no, wait a second. If they're 35% of the population, why do they get 55% of the land? So, unfortunately for the Islamic nations, they are overruled, and on May 14th, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, there he is, announces the creation of the State of Israel with the founder of Zionism, Jewish nationalism, Theodor Herzl, looking over. So maybe you're like, big deal, right? Well, unfortunately, it's controversial because everybody makes a claim here, right? Jews say we go back 3,000 years. Palestinians, who are both Christians and Muslims, say, hey, we've been here a long time too. And the Arabs are like, yeah, we've been here a long time too. So everybody has, if I may say, legitimate claims on this area. So as soon as they declare their independence, 6 Islamic nations invade, and the first of several Arab-Israeli wars break out. They fight it out. Here's some pictures. Israeli soldiers, woman, Arab soldiers here surrendering to Israeli troops in the city of Ramallah, which is right outside of Jerusalem. Okay, so they've duked it out. It stands. But just because Israel won, it doesn't mean everybody's going to just sit back and relax. So we have a series of crises. So the first one is the Suez Crisis of 1956. So here's a name we need to know for the SOLs, Gamal Abdel Nasser. He is a new president of Egypt. At first he's trying to keep neutral in the Cold War, but Western powers get pretty angry, so they take away funding from something that he was really passionate about, and that is the building of this dam, the Aswan Dam. Again, the SOL, they want you to know this. So he gets mad. In retaliation, he takes the Suez Canal. And I'm sure you remember the British have been controlling that since, I don't know, 1869, 1870. So the British are ticked. They get the French and the Israel to help them retake the canal. Israeli troops march in, defeat the Egyptians. Here's some oil tankers burning. Now, what's weird is both the United States and the USSR, they don't like this. And they're like, hey, British, Israelis, take a hike, get out of the Suez. And so today, the Suez Peninsula is a demilitarized zone, so everybody can have access to it. And I think this is a big slap in the face for the British and the French, because remember, for 100 years they've been doing whatever they wanted, but suddenly the new kids on the block, Americans and the Soviets, are like, we determine what happens in world events. So the second crisis, and probably the most important one, is something called the Six-Day War. So because of this dis, and that Israel is now clearly supported by the Americans, Nasser and other Arabs get help from the Soviets. So they decide to close off the Gulf of Aqaba, and that's Israel's outlet to the Red Sea. So in retaliation, the Israeli army, which of course is mostly made up of American military supplies, they strike these various airfields, they fight. In 6 days, the Arab forces are defeated. And so Israel then takes in some territory that they never had: the city of Jerusalem, Sinai Peninsula, Golan Heights, and the West Bank. Now, the Arabs, of course, are going to try to take this land back because these are some important spots in something called the Yom Kippur War, and that says 1973. Now, the SOL wants you to know the leader of Israel at that time is Golda Meir, and she led Israel to victory in the Yom Kippur War. What is Yom Kippur, you may ask yourself? That is the holiest or most sacred holiday in Judaism. So, to me, the Israelis don't know what to do. They've taken this land, and now, I think since 1967, I don't think they've managed things very well, or how are they going to deal with this? So here's kind of a tracing of history here. So here's the partition plan. And so after Israel fought their war of independence, if you will, I'll call it that, in 1949. From 1949 to 1967, this is what Israel looks like. So in 1967, you can say they take in even more territory. This, of course, they have to give back. But the West Bank, so these three territories are crucial. 1, Golan Heights, 2, the West Bank, and 3, the Gaza Strip. So these become Palestinian states within the boundaries of what is considered the state of Israel. So this is a difficult situation that we can talk more about later, but if you're a Palestinian, you're sort of trapped, right, in these areas. Okay, but I'm running out of time. So, I know what you're asking. Can there be peace between these groups of people? Frankly, I'm not sure. Can Arabs and Americans get along? Yes, but we've got to get over these Cold War issues, right? Wherein we supported Israel, thus Arabs turned to the Soviets. So now that this rivalry is over, can we then kind of be friends? Can the Israelis and Palestinians be friends? Sometimes. In 1978, we had our first kind of move towards peace. Menachem Begin here. Nope. Here. Nope. Just kidding. Yes, there's Menachem Begin. He's the Israeli Prime Minister. Yasser Arafat of the PLO. Actually, I realized this is completely wrong. So pretend this is Anwar Sadat. Excuse me. I can't believe I did this. So the picture is correct. The words are wrong. Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat, who was the president of Egypt after Nasser, they make peace in 78. Here's Jimmy Carter mediating this. In 1993, there's the Oslo Accord. So another Israeli Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, and this time, this is Yasser Arafat of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or the PLO. They signed agreements that they're going to be buddies. But I ask you, what is the price of peace? Anwar Sadat was assassinated for making peace or trying to be friends with Israel. In 1994, Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by an Israeli for making an agreement with Yasser Arafat. So I don't know. Will there be peace? I'd like to think so, but at times it does not look good. But we keep trying. So there you have it in a nutshell. So I, of course, have simplified things so much. So if you know about this area and you have some questions, we can discuss it in class. But this is the basics. This is at least what you need to know to get you through the SOL and the final exam.